Yeah, today we are joined by the lovely Dr. Elena Garcia-Martin, and yeah, I'll hand on over.
So thank you for having me today in here. I hope that during the next half an hour or 40 minutes, you will get an idea about the different barriers that women in STEM might face and different actions that we can take to balance the gender gap it exists in STEM. I will start this session with some questions about women in STEM, that means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I will show some numbers to debate if there is a gender gap, is a myth or is it a reality. I will talk about potential reasons for the gender gap and some solutions. But before I start, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Elena Garcia-Martin, an oceanographer working at the National Oceanographic Center in Southampton. So this is, I'm not sure if you can see my pointer, but you can see a picture of the building down there. And I think oceanography is one of those careers that englobes very well the 4 disciplines in STEM, because marine scientists, engineers, mathematicians, bioinformatics, and technology developers work together to increase the knowledge that we have of our ocean. So if you don't mind, close your eyes and think on one scientist, one technologist, one engineer, and one mathematician. I will give you 10 seconds and think about a scientist, technologist, engineer, and mathematician. Probably most of you have thought on Newton or Darwin, Alan Turing as a technologist, Graham Bell or Thomas Edison as engineers, and Pythagoras as a mathematician. Some of you probably have thought only on men. Probably some of you have thought on some women, maybe Marie Curie or Rosalind Franklin. But I'm sure that very small number have thought on for females. And this is because even today, there is a lack of visibility of women in STEM, or not as much as men receive. The first question is, Annie Easley was a computer programmer, chemist, biologist, or biomedical engineer. You just need to vote. Is everybody in there, or would you, I think 2 votes? Thank you. Anybody else would like to contribute? At 3. Okay. So how many have we? 4. Let's see if we get this thing. Okay. Biomedical engineering. Okay. 10 more seconds. If somebody who wants to change or would like to increase. Okay, so it seems that most of you think it was a biomedical engineering. Okay, I will close that poll and I will go to the next one. Now it's open. Jane Goodall is a biomedical engineering, anthropologist, mathematicians, or chemist. Okay, 3 anthropologists, 5. This was easy, isn't it? This is a kind of the famous and very well-renowned female. So yes, it was an anthropologist. Okay, 100% got it right. Okay, so then the next question is, maybe Lucy Cartwright was a biomedical engineering, anthropologist, mathematician, or a chemist. Number 7. So 71% was thinks that it was a chemist, 25% thinks that it's a mathematician. Okay, so you were right with Jane Goodall, 100% said that it was an anthropologist, and it was. Annie Easley was a computer programmer working for NASA. And Mary Lucy Cartwright was a mathematician. And maybe, so there was one person that got it right. And she was famous because of the chaos theory. Maybe you have heard about the butterfly effect. So she was one of the mathematicians that started studying the butterfly effect and chaos theory. Thank you so much for this. And as you can see, oops, sorry, I have included in this poll 3 women. But there are other women, such as Ada Lovelace or Katherine Johnson or Dorothy Hopkins, whose names may be familiar, or sometimes it's more the faces, if you're like me, that you are terrible with names, but very good with faces. But there are women that are just, their names or faces are very familiar to us and have done amazing discoveries. But there are women but the visibility doesn't imply just showing women that have done those advantages to science and that have received prizes. It implies normalizing the appearance of women or in more or less equal ratio in pictures, leaflets, adverts, and any other kind of advertise, because we exist. And here are examples of STEM females around me that I'm lucky to have worked with or be friends with. In these slides, you can see several chemical engineers like Nithya and Carol Robinson, oceanographers, also Carol Robinson and Catherine Hedwoods and Suba. Then we also have some climate modelers, Corinne and Stephanie. We have a telecommunication engineer, Elena, and also atmospheric scientist, Anselmi. So we exist. If we exist, why there's still this gender gap? Why young girls do not follow a STEM career? Is it true or is it a myth? Let's check numbers. So the data that I will show you now comes from the higher education in the UK for the last 3 years. So you have 3 different graphs. The light blue are females and the turquoise are males, and the gray color is not others. You cannot see very well the gray because the numbers are less than 1%, so the line doesn't appear in there. Do not try to find it. And I have grouped the 4 disciplines. So I have grouped all the careers in 4 disciplines: sciences, computing, there is the communication, engineering, and mathematics. So it seems that around 60% of the undergraduates in science disciplines are women, which is really good. But numbers drop down to around 20% for the technology and engineering disciplines. And they are not so bad, so it's around 40% for mathematics. But what about after the degree? I do not have the numbers for the UK, but I will show some numbers for oceanography collected a decade ago in the USA. And for those of you who are not very familiarized with the career progression, if a researcher follows a straight line after finishing their undergraduate, they will go through a master's degree, then a PhD student degree, then a postdoc that sometimes in America is called assistant professor, then to a lecturer or associate professor, and then to a senior professor, as this comic illustrates. So from young to very old, or not so very old, but senior professor. And if you look at the graph, you observe clearly that students represent about 55% of are women, and then those numbers drop to 21% of women who reach senior professor. So it is clear that women drop out as they progress with their career. And this is not only happening in the USA, it's also happening in the UK, and not only in oceanography, because these numbers are only for oceanography, but in all other STEM careers and professions. And the numbers are even worse in some low-income countries. So one thing that we need to have in mind is, why should we get more girls into a bucket that leaks? This is something that is known, and in fact is called the leaky pipeline. So in addition to get our attention and energy on getting girls into STEM careers, we need to put energy on fixing the system in academia or not academia, because even if I have shown you numbers that represent academia, this is also happening in the business or non-academia. So that to fix the system, we need to ask ourselves a couple of questions. Why women are attracted to science, but not to technology and engineering? And why do they live in the 4 disciplines? I have grouped the reasons in 3 blocks: education and culture, workplace, and leadership. Education and culture, the first is the preconception. STEM women or STEM girls are nerdy women or the nerdy girls. I'm sure that you can think on a girl that likes maths or is known for their inventions or her passion for STEM activities that is bullied for her interests, or maybe she prefers to keep it quiet, so it's not bothered by anybody. And I will come back to this a little bit later. Another reason is that there is not enough role models or visible role models because we exist. And role models are not the top STEM people, or as Google told me, women in capes. Role models are women following their passion, as these women in here. Another reason is the lack of self-esteem or support. And this support should come from home, schools, friends, and group societies. And support means two different things: encouragement and confidence. And the two of them can be increased with positive messages about girls' and women's abilities. Women can do the same thing as men. Maybe we do it differently, but different doesn't mean worse. Support them when they come with a challenge, and even expose girls to the STEM activities. How someone could know that they like to follow a STEM career when they have never done any related task to STEM things. And I will tell you a personal story in here. Since I was a kid, I used to follow and play with my brother and his friends. That annoyed him a lot, but I loved it. I used to follow in the forest, or I was playing football with them, catching bugs, playing with the old Nintendos. I also used to be around my father with my nose in everything that my father was doing, trying to fix the electrical equipment, or when he was looking into the engine of the car. But I was always or too small or too dangerous for me to do something. I could help, but from a safer place. And I understand it. I mean, I was only 10 and I just wanted to put my finger in there. During my degree, I knew how to use most of the tools that was inside the toolbox, and I was configuring the Wi-Fi in my house. But it was not until my PhD when my supervisor asked me, how confident are you solving problems? Do you like to fiddle around with tools? You will go on cruises and you will need to fix most of the problems with a spanner, fuses, cable ties, tubings, and tapes. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't know if I know how to do that. But I did, you know? So in the upper two pictures, you can see a younger me 14 years ago, building up the incubation systems for my experiments. In fact, I even designed some thermal leads to use in the Arctic cruise I joined 1 year later. We use this kind of incubations that you can see in these pictures to simulate different depths in the ocean. So they have different filters. So one of them doesn't have a filter and the other one has a light filters and darker. And this is because it allows to penetrate light at different percentages. So the clear one is kind of more the surface water of the ocean, and the darker one is the deepest depth. So the problem in the Arctic is that it snows and there is a lot of frost. So most of the time, ice is accumulated on the top of the lids, and the solar light cannot penetrate into the incubation system. So I came up with the idea of building thermal lids to heat the lid and melt the ice. And you can think, oh, well, this is like the radiator fluorine. And in fact, it is. But it needed to melt the ice on top, but not to warm up the water in the incubator. And I'm not an engineer, but I drew my idea, and I talked to engineers from my university, and we built it. I never thought I would do something like this, but there I was with my big smile, not the one in the picture on the top, but I was very, very happy because they worked, and I did it, you know, it was satisfaction for me. And if I had never been exposed to that kind of situation, I would not know that in fact, I can do things out of my comfort area. The second group of reasons deals with the workplace. Imagine that you have a job interview in an important company today. You have done your homework, you are prepared, your curriculum is fantastic, and you are walking to the meeting room where your potential future boss will interview you. Is there after passing the yellow doors. Open your eyes and walk the corridor with me. Have you reached the yellow door? Which feelings do you have once that you are there before meeting your potential future boss? Probably most of you have realized that there are only men in the big pictures on the wall. What unconscious message do those pictures transmit? Men, welcome. Women, not visible. Could you have the same feeling if the corridor was this one? Probably not. The workplace environment plays an important role in the decisions we make because unconsciously it can influence us. Before coming into the building, you knew that your curriculum was outstanding and you were ready to conquer the world. But after seeing those male pictures, maybe you think it twice. Would you like to be in a male-dominated environment where women don't even appear on the screens? And I have to say that these pictures are taken from my workplace, but I have tuned them to my point in here. Pictures of men and women appear in this corridor, and you can see here that it's just alternating. And this example is quite a common example, and it's not only in business, but also at universities. I know that certain universities have the wall of fame with pictures of males with their prizes. Maybe some women appear in there, but not many. And imagine the pressure for all the female students and staff that wall of fame involves. If you want to be neutral in your school, in your universities, or your working place, we should have a balanced number of pictures with men and women performing similar tasks, or include pictures of landscapes or buildings or nature, or be just more neutral in that sense. But let's go back again to the potential reasons in the workplace. And I have focused again in academia and in oceanography mainly. So we have gender bias and discrimination. For example, limited access to funding and generally lower status, or worse, and smaller labs. A little bit more than a month ago, there was a report in Science about this. And it was women scientists at Feminine Oceanography Institute have half the lab space than men. So if women have half of the space of men, probably they have half of the resources, half of the PhD and postdoctoral supporting staff, and then you need to have the same outputs. How can we do that? Also, another thing that you have to think about is that women also have more admin work. And in some institutions, women are in less numbers than men, but female representation is needed in committees. So women ended up investing more time on other admin work or just representing, being the representative in these committees than just being focused on research. Another reason is harassment, any kind of harassment, not only sexual, but any kind. And I'm glad to say that new policies are in place, but it's still something that exists. If you're interested about this, I invite you to watch the Picture of Scientists documentary, and it's a very good documentary of things that are still happening nowadays in science. Also, we have lack of resources for balancing family and career. And this could be also a cultural thing. Women assume more career responsibilities, which difficult their career progression. And I don't like to generalize, and numbers are changing, but there are still more men that dedicate their time to their research, while women prioritize their family. With there are new policies, for example, in science, we can declare maternity breaks, and then we get an extension. But I'm not sure if that policy really works. And I have experienced this in the last year or so as I turned into a researcher mom. The first month I returned to work after 6 months of maternity leave, it was really hard. I was hardly sleeping at night because baby was not sleeping, and then all day tired. It was thanks to the support of my colleagues and all the hormones flowing through my veins that I survived. But oh gosh, it was hard. So even if my funding bodies give me extra time to compensate for the time I had off, we need a wider time window because it's not only the maternity leave, it's the months that you need to go back to where you were before turning into a mom. And in my case, it took me 2 months, so it was quite quick, but there are other cases that women need more months. And there is another reason, that is mobility availability. In our career, it is encouraged to travel and move countries to progress with our career. And this is not always possible. When you are alone, it could be. When you are two, because you are in a relationship is a little bit more difficult. If you are 3 with a baby, that's challenging. In oceanography, there is also another burden of having the ability of going to sea. And there are circumstances that difficult it, such as being pregnant or breastfeeding. And the third main reason I have grouped is the leadership. And I think in here, the main reason is the preconception of the skills needed. Many young girls think that to join a STEM career, they need to be brilliant and determined and have a strong leadership. And I don't know why girls do not think that they are brilliant when we are. And that creativity is not welcome. Well, in fact, creativity is more than welcome. So let's stop with this misperception and break through the stigma. So what can we do? First, we need to improve representation. And visualize implies showing women in STEM as we are. I'm not sure what do you think, but in many TV shows or cartoons, scientists or engineers are mainly boys, men, or awkward characters. I love Big Bang Theory. I have had a lot of fun watching them, and they are very good scientific jokes. But the female characters are or awkward scientists or the attractive waiter model. And I recognize myself in some geek conversations while I'm surrounded by other scientists. But if you ask me to choose one character that represents me from this series, none really. You can argue that they are TV shows, but it is also a reflection of the textbooks and sometimes the language that we use. I know that things have changed, and in the last decade, but when I was in the high school, very few females' names appear in my books. Now we have books dedicated to STEM women. So I have at home Women in Science. I heard about the great women who changed the world. There is also about scientists. And the other day talking to Talia, she told me about the good night stories for rebel girls. And I thought it was really great. So this is not specifically for STEM women, but it's for all women. And to improve representation, we need to find relevant role models and mentors for girls. Nowadays, we can use social media to approach females and ask them to be the role model or the mentor. A mentor should be preferable 3 or 4 steps ahead of you. If you want a role model for a high school girl, go and find a woman that has just finished the degree or have been 2 years in their job. If you want a role model for an early career researcher, so already a PhD student or a postdoc, then go for a woman in a senior position. But don't ask a CEO of a company to be the mentor of a high school girl, because probably the difficulties that the CEO has faced are different to the ones that the girls are facing right now. And also the culture has changed. And mentors can be women and men. And do not forget the role that men play in here. If men do not see there is a problem, maybe it means that they could be part of the problem. Men should speak up when they observe situations that underrate women in all working environments. I had male supervisors, line managers, and mentors, and all of them support me and encourage me to get the best of me. So they are also playing an important role here. Another thing that we can do is to create mentoring programs on joining STEM groups for women and encourage children to attend the science festivals organized in your city. All of these activities are important because it will allow girls and women to find their role model and also to give opportunities that sometimes are only accessible for the all-boys club or people at higher levels. Talking to scientists in this relaxed environment, as could be the science festival, is easier than talking to them while they are in the working place. First, because we are more open to interact with people, while in our working places, I have a deadline and I need to submit this and I need to send an email to that person. Sorry. And one thing that we have to do is let's ask the young girls inventors, what do they want to create and which kind of innovations they want to do? And create them STEM camps for fit for purpose, because there is no point of sending girls to a STEM camps where it's just video computing. What that person, what they want to do is just came up with a device to help the grandfather who is in a wheelchair. You know, we need to ask what is their motivation and what drives them to come up with such an invention and creativity. The second thing that we can do is integrate women into all working days. And it's known that getting more girls into STEM increases diversity and also expands the pool of talented researchers, bringing in fresh perspective, talent, and creativity. So it is important that women are integrated in the team as key players, not as side players. And I'm not sure if you have read this book, but it remarks how many gadgets are made for the standard male and not even tested on women. Why? Probably because they didn't have a woman in their team. If there was a woman in the team, probably they would have said, hey, this may work for you guys, but what about us? So what can we do to integrate better women? First, it's important to create a flexible work culture. If we know that women also wears the hat of the principal career at home, universities and workplaces should have a flexible timetable. Do not start meetings before 9:30 or after 4. This will allow parents to leave and pick up kids from school without interfering with their job. If you would like to promote a communication in the working place, do not do beers after 5. Promote coffee breaks at 10:30. In addition, with the new technologies and the artificial intelligence, it is easier to fight the mobility ability that I have explained before. As nowadays, we do many online meetings or hybrid meetings. We can control robots from our home, and thanks to the Wi-Fi and to the satellites. In oceanography, this is very important because it opens the doors to many researchers that could not go to sea, from whatever reason they had: disability, not fit for being on a research vessel, pregnant, breastfeeding, or any other. So let's use these new technologies and artificial intelligence to incorporate women and make it more accessible. And the last thing that we can do, and is not less important, is to support girls and women. It's very important that we pay attention to the things that we say and how we say. Stereotypes or calling things to be a boy thing or a girl thing is not good. And this is everywhere. If you go to a toy store, the boy section is full of video games and cars and weapons, and the girl section is full of dolls. And video games are not a boy thing. Video games are video games. And words can hurt and damage a lot. Female teachers can also encourage creativity in their classrooms, or they can use games in their classrooms, so they will be the example for all the girls to follow. For example, one way to increase the creativity is just to put 4 different things that you can find at home. Let's say, I don't know, a fork, a shampoo, a rubber band, and a piece of paper in a box, and ask your student to create gadgets with those things and let them explain what it can be used for. There is no right or wrong answer, and you never know who will need that gadget. So everything is more than welcome. But remember that if you do this, this is to encourage creativity, and it's not a competition between students. And this needs to be clear. Also, we need to support and encourage women to pursue their dreams. We need to show girls that there is a place for them in STEM and that their ideas are valued. And be truthful to their reality. Do not say that it will be easy or that willing power is enough. I think we need to explain to the girls and women the potential obstacles they will find, provide the tools to solve the problems, support them while facing the problems, and always indicate that there are some actions that should not be accepted and they need to speak up. And to finish, the last thing I would like to mention is to encourage girls and women to enroll in leadership programs and explain the different kind of leadership that exists. A leader does not have to be an autocratic, dictatorial, and always talking first person. You can be a leader that inspires others through effective communication, empathy, and maybe you prefer to listen before taking any decision. Or you can be a charismatic leader, an eloquent person that have a strong power of conviction and focusing on solving problems. All these kind of leadership are valid and need to be visible. Women need to ask themselves, which are my strengths and attributes that I like and how I use them to be a leader. So I hope that today you have learned something, and feel free to email me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elena. I really enjoyed that. I hope everyone else did as